Wow. It would probably start with I'm a mental health advocate. I very much believe that we as a culture still need to do an awful lot about those suffering from mental illness. And so that's one of the many things that my wife and my family are proponents of. The other things I'm passionate about are Major League Baseball and college baseball. I am a public address announcer in my spare time. For a living, I'm a marketing consultant and advertising specialist. And let's see, I've lived in West Texas for over 20 years now. Originally from Vermont, grew up in the Midwest. My father was a college professor at Purdue University, so I'm still very loyal to the Boilermakers. And let's see, I'm the youngest of four children. But right now in my life, the biggest things for me are my wife and my family, and what I do every day.
Wow. I love the passion that you and your wife and your family have. Baseball, I feel like that's really your life. Every time the weekend comes, that's exactly what you're doing.
It seems that way, doesn't it? It's gotten quieter for me now on the announcing front, but yes, I'm a big baseball fan, for sure, and that's a large part of my life. We're kind of in a part of the year right now where things are relatively quiet. My two oldest children don't are out on their own. My oldest son is preparing to start his doctoral program at LSU in mathematics. And my oldest daughter is out in the working world. And so I don't get to see her as much as I'd like. She still lives here in San Angelo, the town we live in. My youngest son will be 18 in about a month, and he's gone for the summer. He is with Santa Clara Vanguard, which is a drum corps based out of obviously California. They're in the process of going out and doing a lot of shows and a lot of contests. And he turns 18 on the day that his senior year of high school starts. My wife is on the school board in our school system here, and one of the responsibilities of the school board is to approve the school calendar. So my son was not real happy with my wife when he found out that the first day of school was his birthday. So that was a point of contention around the Flint household not long ago. Um, so my youngest is still here at the house. She's 12. She'll be 13 in January. She's a musician, a cello player, an oboe player. As is my youngest son. He's a trumpet player, and an amazing one at that. I fully expect music to be part of his career as he goes through college, starting in a year or so. Um, so it's my wife and my daughter around the house these days. It's a little quiet around here, um, but things will change soon enough in August when school starts again.
Well, I tell you what, music is a very big part of my family as well. everyone either sings or plays an instrument, from drums, guitar, saxophone. So we definitely have that in common. You have a very busy household, John. I don't know how you keep all of your balls in the air and not let any of them fall. I must say that I am very impressed by that.
Well, just let's clarify. I drop them often, um, so you can give me lots of credit if you like, but no, it happens. And as human beings, we have to, in this incredibly crazy world we live in. One of the things that I think personally is that we all take ourselves a bit too seriously. We are not perfect. None of us are. We can strive to be perfect if we wish. But as I've grown older, um,
I agree.
as I've grown older, I've learned to accept what I cannot control. Um, that doesn't keep me from getting really wound up and passionate about things, but um,
Do you mind telling us how old you are? Am I allowed
I
to ask that question?
absolutely I do not mind at all. I turned 59 at the end of June 25th. So for those that are close to that age, and that 60 number is right around the corner, for me, I will tell you, it has been on my mind a lot. I I've always said, I don't really want to grow up, but growing older doesn't necessarily mean you have to grow up all the way. I think a lot of us are missing some of the childlike wonder. It's funny that we bring this up because I found a movie recently on Amazon, and I won't take up too much time on this, but it has to do with the Voyager spacecraft. And I say childlike wonder because I'm still fascinated by space, and the scientific discoveries that have been made, and how technology has changed us so much especially in the last 20 years. And it seems like technology is racing at this point. I deal with that on a daily basis, on the digital advertising front. Things change so quickly, and there's so many advances as time goes on, and really so many facets of life. But I think it's important that we try to keep some of that childlike wonder, and not lose our curiosity about things.
That's something else that we have in common. Me and space, we have had a love affair for many, many years. When I was a kid, I actually wanted to be an astronomer. I loved just, you know, not only an astronomer, but I wanted to be a meteorologist too. So could you imagine
Yeah.
me as a weather person?
I
But those were
can.
like two
I
of my passions
absolutely
when I was
can.
younger. I loved, and even now, I think as I'm getting older, it translates more into astrology, maybe, and
Mhm.
just understanding the rhythm of our universe.
There's so many unknowns, along those lines, from astronomy to astrology to the rhythm of life. And there's so much energy floating out there, and there are so many things we do not know. And I think that's one of the things that um, keeps my curiosity as high as it is that there are so many unknowns. And I have this hunger, um, and I really always have had a hunger for knowledge. Um, and
So much that we don't know. So much that we don't know.
Right. And when I was my youngest son's age, as so many young people that age do and are. They think they know everything they need to know, or they get to a point where they've been in school for 12, 13 years, and do they really want to go on? Fortunately, um, my children did not follow my example, and they have gone on. All of them have gone on and will go on to higher education. It's one thing that I really, I really regret. I don't have a lot of regrets as I grow older, but one of the regrets is that I did not go to college. I did not finish and get a degree. But fortunately, things are such that when I'm ready, when I've gotten to the point where all the kids are off and on their own and doing their thing, I can go and get further education about things. And at this point in my life, I've lived enough life and gathered enough information over the years that from a graduation or diploma standpoint, I could probably end it from an academic standpoint. I could probably test out of about three years of college, because I've had so many life experiences, and I'm very fortunate. I have been very
That's
blessed.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like we do have so much in common. I did not get the opportunity to finish getting my degree either. And I am on that path now. Hopefully, next year I will start taking courses again. It's just, there's so many variables, right? When you've gone to college already in another state, and you're in a new state and transferring credits and all that, it's really kind of been a pain in my butt. But I'm not going to let that discourage me. I'm definitely going to get my degree. I feel like that's important.
Life certainly gets in the way at times. What is it they say? Life is what happens while we're making other plans, and so it's things do happen, and we can get sidetracked. But the important part is that once we are ready, we can get back on that track.
Absolutely. So it's been really nice having our audience get to know you a little bit better. I just want to say thank you again for coming on. I appreciate your willingness to come on and have a difficult conversation about inequality, especially in this country. I thought it'd be really interesting to get the opinion, of a middle-aged white guy from Texas. What's your experience with racism and prejudice and inequality there in where you live and in your life in general?
I was brought up by a man, in my opinion, the greatest man I ever knew, my father. I was brought up to be accepting of all human beings, regardless of race, color, creed, intellectual ability, um, physical abilities. We all have challenges, and but I was brought up to be accepting. I have there was a man by the name of Tony Zamora, who for many years was the director of the Black Cultural Center at Purdue University. Um, Tony was a remarkable man that my father introduced me to. Um, Tony was a mentor. I don't think he ever realized it, but he was a mentor for me because he was strong and, like me, accepting of all human beings, regardless of who they were. He and my father became very good friends over the years, and Tony passed a few years before my father did. Um, but Tony left a lasting legacy. Um, I know of what our nation and our culture's history has been regarding African Americans. And I do not subscribe to some of the feelings of some people that we need to remove history from the classroom. You have heard that recently. There's been a lot of talk about there's been a lot of talk about changing the names of schools that are named after. For instance, we had a situation here where Robert E. Lee has some history in the state of Texas. And there was a middle school here that was named Robert E. Lee Middle School. It was changed to Legacy Middle School by the school board. At the time the vote happened, my wife had COVID. So she participated, but remotely. She was very sick at the time when that happened. When the petitions began to circulate, my immediate thought was, okay, I don't have a problem changing the name of the school. You cannot change history. History, by definition, is something that happened in the past. You cannot go and erase the past. The most important thing is to learn from the past and learn from the mistakes, and understand that, fortunately, society continues to evolve. Not always the best way, but many times it's for the better. Again, I'm not a revisionist. I don't believe in that. I think it's important to remember what our history was, both the good parts and the bad parts. I'm
I
a multicultural household. Okay, my wife is Jewish. My children are Jewish. We, the Jews, for the most part, are not trying to erase the awful things that happened to them over the centuries. The Jewish people, for the most part, you have to remember those things. It's important that you remember those things and how awful they were, so that they aren't repeated. Those who do not follow history and do not know history are doomed to repeat the mistakes of history.
Do you think, though, I'm so happy that you did bring this topic up. CRT is kind of the technical term that they're using these days, critical race theory, which is a college level course from my understanding. And so it's not so much that it's the teaching of critical race theories, it's teaching history and rewriting history. And I feel like we need to start challenging Americans to even remember history. So when you say that, in the Jewish community, it's important to remember what happened over the last, several decades, I think it's important for America to remember what happened over the last several centuries and to really understand that we're where we are today because of our history. I get, even now, I'm over everyone clutching their pearls about all the things that's happening. It's like, this has been going on forever. They've just been going on to Black people, poor people. You know what I mean? And so, not forgetting history is one thing, but how about we just remember and learn history?
I think that's incredibly important, and I think you make a very valid point, in that, something that's been in the news recently, is an arrest warrant that was found from 1955. The arrest warrant was for the wife of one of the white men who were accused and ultimately acquitted in the killing of Emmett Till in 1955. That arrest warrant somehow was lost. The Emmett Till episode of 1955 is a perfect illustration of the injustice that, and there were so many other examples of it, of the injustice that African Americans went through in the middle part of the 20th century. Not that it isn't still happening today. Obviously, the police shooting in Akron is one, and there are so many questions surrounding that yet. It's from the current optics in Akron, real briefly. It looks like over 100 shots were fired by 8 different police officers at an unarmed black man who had been pulled over. They did find a weapon in his car. They did find a magazine, a filled magazine in his car, but the gun was empty. I have not seen anything that says there was a test on the weapon to see if a shot was actually fired by that weapon recently. So we don't know. The police officers are saying, and so often the reports of the
So
police officers are not 100% accurate, and it's hard for us to make a decision on that just yet. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
let me just take a minute real quick to just welcome again everyone to the show. You are tuning in to Inequality. We are a podcast and we are that space between inequality here. And we had CJDA 2020 come in. Hey, Chicago. We have Bull One Fan. How are you doing today? And anyone who's on YouTube that's watching, hello to you as well. Um, John, I want to challenge something that you said. There are a couple
Okay.
things that you said that I think just me as, a black woman in this country, when you refer to the Emmett Till killing as just an episode, do you understand how that could be off-putting to black folks when you just call it an episode?
Yes, I can, and certainly, I do not want to ever off-put anyone, but when I say episode, I said that was just one in a huge litany of injustices that African Americans dealt with in the American South in the mid 20th century.
That's definitely true. And so I think I can appreciate that episode. I had to have you explain it because, that's one of the complaints that I have about the media today is that I feel like political correctness is just so rampant now that we just don't tell the whole truth. We use 3 sentences to just describe 2 words when if you just said those 2 words, that would have been so much easier and better and would have been more impactful. You know what I mean?
I agree 3,000%. And I've always felt as though
So
I think we
let's
all
go
are a
back then. And
little,
oh, sorry, I
yeah.
didn't mean to interrupt you. We've
No,
got
which
this
is, I
lag
think,
thing. Please
I
start over
think,
and say what you were starting to say.
okay. No, I just think, I think the political correctness, I think we're all a little too thin-skinned in some ways. I think it's important to tell the truth. I grew up in an era where media was not what it is today. You every media outlet, regardless of who they are, I feel has an agenda. Um, I grew up with so many of us in the era of Walter Cronkite, who for many years was the most trusted man in media. He gave us the facts, and there was there was no agenda. I don't believe in a, let's face it, what was a, for me at least, was a much simpler time. For African Americans, obviously, we're finding out, and I'm finding out as an American white, and have learned throughout the years that injustice and inequality have been a part of American culture from the very beginning. George Carlin had a line when he was describing our culture. He said, "We have a great nation, but we've got a really weird culture, a very odd culture." Think about it. This country was founded by wealthy white slaveholders who wanted to be free. I mean, hang on a sec. They wanted to be free of British rule. They were tired of taxation without representation. They wanted, as we all do, they wanted to control their own destiny while still holding slaves. Now, I am not saying that's right. It is not right. Human beings are not property. But if you read the portion of the Constitution that talks about the census, really good example of how inequality has been a part of American culture from the very beginning. Now, that was accepted in that society. That was accepted 200, 300 years ago, at least accepted by, white civilized society.
That's what we say here on this show, John. We understand that inequality happens to a lot of different people, a lot of different ethnicities. But the difference is in this country, inequality is legislated against Black people, and it still is. And one of the reasons why we do this show is to kind of shine a light on that inequality and to help people kind of take their blinders off, because I don't think that people are bad. I don't think people don't care in general. I just think that we only care about certain things, right? So we're walking around like this, and whatever's happening over here, we really can't see. And as long as what's in front of us is good, then we don't really care to take our blinders off. But I feel like we need to take a moment, especially now where we are in this point in history, to understand that things are not fair for everyone here. Things are not equal for everyone here. And the sad part about it is that the people who are doing bad, the educational system has failed, our justice system has failed. They're Black people who built this country. And in over the generations, the people who are here that built this country are now labeled as lazy, dangerous. The cops can kill you because just being Black makes you dangerous. Like how we went from, we built this country for free, generation after generation after generation. And we didn't want to do it. So let's just put that there. It's not something that we went singing every day and we were happy to be slaves because the master was taking care of us. No. And now we're here at this point in history and all throughout history where being Black is bad, when we've contributed so much to this country, but that isn't even talked about. It's only important that we see how Black people are doing bad, welfare moms, drug, ghettos, like that is the part to me that should be discussed more. And that's why I wanted you here, because it's really difficult, I think, to have those honest conversations between Black and white in this country.
Yes, it is difficult. It's uncomfortable. And in my heart, I believe very strongly in equality. I believe very strongly that we are all God's children, regardless of our skin color, frankly, regardless of our religion. We are all our children of our maker. And because of the fact that I was brought up as a white American, there are still um, parts of the way I express myself. We just talked about it. I wouldn't have thought anybody would be off put by me describing the Emmett Till killing as an episode in a string of injustices. Yet, it could very well, and that's never the intent. So it's I'm part of a white population that wants equality in everyday life for everyone. And it's important to me that we continue to strive for that. And so I guess it's one of those things where we need, as a white population, we need to continue to learn what is off-putting and what is upsetting, apart from the obvious that we know already. But there are nuances we do not know that we do need to learn over time. Here's a really good example of something along these lines. Okay. And I've been corrected by my 12-year-old daughter on this. And when she first brought it to me, and you'll understand, I have a niece who, when my niece was a very young girl, an infant, I was fortunate enough to be around so that I could babysit, so that my brother and his wife could go out and have some time away. So I would babysit my niece, and I would change her diapers, and it was great. I loved it. Well, my niece is now grown, and she identifies as a different gender. And gender identification is something that me, as a 59-year-old white male, I'm still learning. I'm still learning what's accepted. I was referring to my niece as her and she, and I was very quickly corrected a number of different times by my youngest son and my youngest daughter. And at first, it was like I kind of blew it off, but then I thought, you know what? I really kind of need to, use my brain on this. This is, it isn't about me. It isn't about the way I grew up. I need to be able to evolve and change my thinking. And I need to learn to be able to be coached by my children as society changes. And I think that's really important. I think more parents need to listen to their children, especially when they get into middle school, and they, because my daughter doesn't know any other way. She has, I mean, this has been part of the way she has grown up. And so and I'm speaking me specifically, and perhaps other people in my generation, other white Americans in my generation, we need to open our eyes a little bit more, and we need to be far more open to things in society that have changed. I told my wife a couple of times I was born 20 years too late because the culture has changed so much and continues to change, and it is a challenge. And there are, let's face it, there are members of my generation that do not want to have anything to do with this new society. They have shut it off. They're going to stay on Fox News Channel all the time. They're not going to open their eyes to other opinions.
They're demonstrating that very clearly to us, that they do not want things to change. It is just so in our face now. What do we do about that, John?
Well, If I had the answers, I'd be very, very, very wealthy. But I can say this much, and I got into this very discussion as I was preparing to be on your show. I got into a discussion with my daughter, who um, we actually had this conversation, and she actually said these words to me. It's the first time I've heard them, and it filled me with pride. She said, "I'm proud of you, Dad, for doing this." And that, I mean, I don't think she will ever understand how important it is, for me to have my children proud of me. Um, I I believe very strongly, and this is going to take us, I think, into a conversation on Roe v. Wade that obviously needs to be had. But I I don't believe the government should be as
Yes.
involved in our lives as it is, um, for a couple of different reasons. Now, I personally do not believe in abortion. Okay, I'll say that straight out. I don't believe in it, but it's not up to me to believe in it. Roe v. Wade was, and I don't think a lot of people understand this. Okay, Roe v. Wade was the federal government's way of intruding into our lives by saying, as far as they're concerned, it's legal. You should have access to safe abortions. But you know what? I don't need the government to tell me that. And I don't think any female, regardless of race, should look to the government for approval on that kind of stuff. So the overturning of Roe v. Wade simply says that that decision, whether it's legal or not, goes to the states. Now, if you believe the Constitution, and if you are of the opinion that the founding fathers, they did not want a big government. To me, from a constitutional standpoint, they did not want a big government. They did not want government interfering in your life, which is why there's been so much talk about, the Second Amendment. Okay. But it's in how you read the Second Amendment that's the problem. Okay. So now in Texas thinks it's its own country anyway. In fact, it's actually and this is amazing to me, and
Yes.
because I didn't know this. My wife was reading the Republican platform.
That's why I will not move to Texas.
It's in the Republican platform in the state of Texas that they want to secede from the Union. It's in the platform. The Republicans want to secede from the Union. It's never going to happen. I can tell you that right now. It's never going to happen. Governor Abbott is way out there in right field. I mean, he's slightly to the right of Attila the Hun, as they say. He's way out there with his thinking on this, and on a number of other issues. And honestly, for the most part, I'm a Republican. And I can say that I'm a very moderate Republican. I'm far more Mitt Romney than I am Donald Trump. That's for sure. I'm maybe even more Ronald Reagan. But no, I mean, it's actually in the Republican platform to secede. Charter schools. That is a whole nother show, Twana, we can get into.
I want
Charter
you to just be
schools.
John Flint.
Oh
How
my
about you just be
gosh.
John Flint for us? We don't want you to be Mitt Romney or Ronald Reagan.
I don't really fit. That's the thing. I'm a square peg, man. I really am. There are things that I'm incredibly liberal on, and other things that I'm kind of like, and my wife and I have said this often. whatever happened to the common sense party? You know, um, common sense. It just seems to be lacking in so many different ways now. You know, there to me, there are an awful lot of people who get wound up about things that are happening in our society without really doing their homework. You can't get all of your information from one source these days. You can't do it. You have to be able to dig in, gather what information you can, and then make your own decision from that. I do think that John F. Kennedy said it best. You're never going to find a political party that you agree with in all things. There's not, there's none out there.
You're saying so much here, John, and I'm trying not to jump in and cut you off because everything you're saying is great. But there are a couple of things that I need to go
have
back
something
and cover
called,
here real quick.
Yes, absolutely. I have what's called deflating balloon syndrome. I am all over the place.
Okay, so when we speak about inequality in this country, and we're just going to go back to Roe v. Wade real quick because this is a conversation that I knew we were going to have. When you say that even white men just want to be free, like our founding fathers just want to be free. So how is it that freedom still includes telling other people what they can, or legislating what other people can do with their bodies? And then second, that part of the Constitution that gives states the power when the federal government just kind of decides they don't want to deal with it is the 10th Amendment. I've learned a lot about that over the last year. But how is it that the founding fathers didn't want big government, but they still wanted the states to govern themselves? Talk about how that's different in your mind. Both of those things.
Well, it's funny, and I will tell you this: I don't. There's not a place for me to plant a flag in this issue, but what I can do is I can go back and there was a special on PBS not long ago about Theodore Roosevelt. Okay. And a comparison between Theodore Roosevelt and Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson believed that the only things that government can do are things they are given permission to do within the framework of the Constitution. They cannot legislate outside of what is set up in the Constitution. 100 years after that, here comes Teddy Roosevelt, who says, the government can do anything it wants, provided the Constitution does not prohibit it. Two completely different readings of the Constitution. I think many of those same arguments and many of those same feelings can be attributed to our leaders now. The Constitution can be read so many different ways. And you also have to understand that the Constitution was written over 200 years ago, coming up on 250 years ago, and society was completely different at the time. I do not think the government, whether it be state or federal, can tell a female what she can do with her body. Period. Exclamation point. Underlined, italics. I do not believe that the government can tell you that. I don't believe anybody should be able to tell you whether or not you can fly the American flag in your front yard. If you want to, great. It's your front yard. If that offends someone that you're flying the American flag, avert your eyes. I do think that there are some things and I'm going to use
If only it were that easy, John.
yeah, oh, I know. I would like to think that everything in our lives can be based around Judeo-Christian ethics. Okay, what we all know to be right and wrong. The Ten Commandments, for instance. But that would mean that the entire population would have to believe in personal responsibility. And let's face it, there are many in our society who do not, for whatever the reason. So, again, this is not a perfect country. We are not a perfect society. There are many things that are wrong with us. There are many things that can be improved upon. But I will say that white America needs to get off its high horse. I think it's a giant crock that the majority, the overwhelming majority of political leaders in our country are old white men, most of them over the age of 70, that are running our country. And I just think that's wrong. I mean, there are not enough women. There are not enough African American politicians or African American people in our government. There just aren't, and it's not. Some people will say that the number of women and minorities in the House and Senate and in the state houses across the country, the number of them represent the percentages of them in our population. I don't believe that for a second. I'd like to see some hard, fast numbers.
Let me jump in again, because I'm telling you, you're saying so many good things, and the one thing I don't want you to feel like is that I am attacking you, but I do have some things that I have to challenge you on.
Okay, and again, please
welcome everyone to Inequality. We are the space between inequality here, and I just want to take a minute to say hello to my pastor who walked in the building while we were talking. John, my pastor, spiritual thought leader, is an amazing, amazing person. She really teaches and indoctrinates in us to walk in our boss energy, to take control of our lives, and to be rooted in God, but also understand that having God rooted in us means that we have that boss energy. We own it. And I have walked into a new iteration of myself because of my pastor. And I just have to take a minute and tell her thank you. John, I don't know if I told you yesterday about my trip to the doctor. It just seems like over and over and over the last 3 months, there have been so many things that have happened just in the realm of my health. And I will say that had it not been, number one, for the prayers of my family and for the prayers of my pastor and the community that I have here on Twitter, I would be a totally different person. 2 years ago, John, had all of this health stuff hit me like it has, like back to back to back to back, I would have given up. The devil has known the game plan to get me to just curl up and give up. But because I have been like listening so much to what my pastor says to me, woo! Sorry, I'm feeling the Holy Ghost right now. I feel my boss energy. I am walking in the newness of myself. And so all of this stuff, I am just know that my body will be at ease. I claim it in the name of Jesus. I do. But now, thank you for joining Spiritual Thought Leader. I appreciate you. Listen, you're saying so many things that in my mind I wanted to ask, white men about. Number one, I feel like, and this is just me talking, I feel like Christianity really contributed to totally getting rid of a whole group of people. The Native Americans that were here were destroyed in the name of Christianity. Everything that was done, enslavement, everything that was done in this country was done in the name of Christianity. The violence, the degradation, it was all done in the name of Christianity. So while we are Christians, I have family here, my pastor, we are Christians. We definitely identify as that. At the same time, I think when you said Judeo-Christian, maybe that's what got me. It's like Christianity has been the beginning of the end of a lot of things for us. Can you just expound on that a little bit more for me?
And you're absolutely correct. And I mean, you can name so many things that have been attributed to Christianity. When I say Judeo-Christian, I mean what we all grew up to be right and wrong. Okay. Much of what's considered right or wrong in our society is based on the Ten Commandments. You don't steal, you don't kill, you don't covet. There are just some things that are right and wrong. Jim Croce back in the 70s had a song, you don't tug on Superman's cape, you don't spit into the wind, you don't pull the mask off the Lone Ranger. There are just certain things you don't do and are not acceptable in our society, whether it be socially or otherwise. That's what I mean when I say Judeo-Christian ethics. Yes, the Christian church, the Catholic Church in particular, was responsible for many acts of violence, the deaths of thousands over the centuries, and the and that was organized religion. Okay, the Catholic Church. You know, I wish I had gotten my friend Nat Turney on this. I have a friend named Nat Turney who is a minister. He has his own podcast called "This Is Not Church." He and I
We can
have
do that
many.
again. We can get your
Um,
friend Nat. Yeah,
we need.
let's get Nat on here later because I think that's a good conversation that we can have.
Yes.
Because even in the chat right now, my spiritual thought leader is just chiming in and wants just to just recognize that young white men and women are also being groomed as white nationalists also. So we have both sides of it. We're being groomed to do good and to do bad, and white evangelicalism has wreaked havoc on marginalized people for subjugation and God-oriented privilege. And again, I hear all the time there's more than one side to a story, right? There's always more than one side to a story, but I feel like the whole point of this podcast is to share both sides, listen and understand each other, and maybe switch our perspectives a little bit. So I want to do that with you, and then I hope that you are also open to doing that with me. So I really appreciate you being on. So I just wanted to stop and say that. So go ahead, and we're going to get Nate. John, make sure you give me his information, because if I can have him on with spiritual thought leader, I just feel like that would be an awesome conversation, as long as he's not, as long as he's open to iron sharpening iron. Something else I got from my pastor. We always sometimes take these confrontations that we have amongst one another as bad, and not understanding that we are just iron sharpening iron.
I will tell you about Nat. Nat Turney is a minister. He has his church is the Open Table Fellowship. And he has this space in a shopping center not far from where we live, actually. In addition to being a friend and a fellow baseball nut, he is also one of my clients. He buys advertising from me for his coffee shop that he has in his same space. Nat, when I first met Nat, I thought, wait a minute, this guy's a minister? Because he did not look like a minister to me. He has about as much hair as I do, maybe a little less, but he's got this very long goatee. He loves good coffee, obviously. He also likes really good whiskey, and he also is a bit of a beer connoisseur. He is an amazing human being with an amazing family, and I know that when I go see Nat, I need to carve out some time because we're going to talk about stuff. His podcast is called This Is Not Church. He's been at it at least a couple of years now, and I will get you his information. He's really a terrific guy, and he's just a guy that um,
Please do.
he just Nat just popped into my life, and we've become friends. Although we're both so ridiculously busy, it's difficult to find time to get together where we can just chat. But he just recently found out that he's going to be a grandfather too, and I'm extremely jealous of him for that. But no, Nat and I are both of the school that organized religion is the worst thing that has ever happened to free thinking human beings. I have my beliefs. Nat has his beliefs. We don't try to push our beliefs on each other. To me, faith and religion and spirituality is a very, very personal thing. It goes to the roots of who we are as human beings. And, like you, I agree. Christianity, the Catholic Church, the New Testament, in a lot of ways. I agree. It has, as long as there has been, what's the line from Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code? As long as there has been one true God, there has been killing in his name. And that's just the way it's always been. And I hate to say that I don't think that will ever change, but I do not think it will ever change. It's been going on since time immemorial, and I don't believe that is ever going to change. I think, but I do think it's important that we talk about it. And sooner or later, these conversations are going to lead to some earth-shattering realizations that hopefully will change all of our lives for the better. But there are some things. You're right, Twana. There are things that we all need to be called out on and challenged on why we think a certain way and how we came to those decisions.
Absolutely. And these conversations need to be had in so many different ways. Whether it's, me and my daughter, you and your daughter, who seems very progressive for her age. I feel like I'm a fan of hers already. But having these conversations is important. That's why, I have a lot of, really smart people that come on this show with me, and independent thinkers like you, but just having a conversation where I'm not necessarily digging into one topic or the other, I think is important. And to bring people on like you, who's brave enough to be here amongst all of my people who are probably more on the Black side than the white side, I think is very brave of you. But I appreciate you sharing your thoughts and your feelings. And there are so many other things that you've talked about. Like you've said African American, so many problems. Boy, do I have a problem with that. We can have a conversation about that. There's so many, and the Constitution, first of all, being created during the beginning of this country when it was written into that Constitution that Black people are property. We're not even a full person. We are only given a number, 3/5 of a person, in order to work on representation, and still at the same time not even being a person in the eyes of the people who created this country. So the Constitution, I think, needs to be thrown out the window. Personally, are there some good things about the Constitution? I'm sure there is, but I feel like our insistence to hold ourselves accountable by the Constitution, again, it's more than off-putting, John. To Black people, holding on to the Constitution is offensive to us because we are still not a whole person in that document.
Well, and this is one of the many things that need to be changed about the Constitution. We first of all, we need to completely rewrite the way the census is done. There's no question. And the problem with throwing out the Constitution is, as opposed to what? So, and listen, I'm not opposed to amending the Constitution in many, many, many ways. But until we have something better, I think it's it's the only thing we got. And I do think we have to have a blueprint for our government. There needs to be, some structure. Structure brings order, hopefully. And so
I
if
agree.
if we can come up with ways to amend the Constitution,
Yeah.
and again, it's the only game we got right now. If there is another one out there, I was talking again in a conversation with my daughter. I said, "Do you realize that in China, and I think this is still the case,
This is true.
in China, you can have 2 children. That's it. That's all you're allowed to have." And she goes, "What? Wait, what?" I said, "Oh yeah. Um, you know, this is not a perfect country, obviously, but it's a lot better than what a lot of other people around the world have." Um, you know,
Yeah.
I keep going back to China because it's, I guess the biggest
The funny
communist
thing is that's always
country.
said, it's better than what other people around the world have. But I don't know what happens around the world personally. I only know what happens here. And what happens here is what affects me and my kids and my grandkids. And honestly, it wasn't until I started having grandkids. And yes, you do want to be you want to be a grandfather, John. It's amazing. But I have to think now about my generations that are coming after me. What do I want to leave them? How do I want their lives to be? And in this world and in the way, or in this country and the way that we're going right now, I'm not hopeful for what my grandkids and my great grandkids have in store for them. So yeah, the Constitution really is all we have. Then we need to figure out how to make it better instead of embracing it. I would love to just hear more people say that the Constitution is not perfect. There are many things in there that needs to be changed, and we need to get on that right now.
Well, and here's the other thing too. How in the world can we put ourselves in the minds of the founding fathers and what the intent was of what was written? There are an awful lot of so-called experts that say that's not what the founders intended. Well, how the hell do you know what the founders intended? You cannot tell. From the language itself has changed so much over the more than 2 centuries that have passed since it was written. So no, it definitely needs some cleaning up, some clarification, and some updating. There's no question that there needs to be some things cleaned up. The 3/5 of all other citizens, what bullshit. That I still can't believe that hasn't been changed.
Yeah.
But I think the most important thing that we need to try to get across to
Hasn't
people.
been changed. Nor do we have the right to vote yet. That still has to be brought up all the time, that Black people have the right to vote. There are so many things that keep coming up that we have to keep ratifying or approving again. And so I think it's really important to, there are so many great things happening in this chat right now, John. I want to just take a minute to just say that there are people who are chiming in now, spiritual thought leaders saying we can amend it to provide diversity, equity, and inclusion, but we have to start working on the framework now. Resh in the Flesh says that maybe they want us to believe that it's better here. Better for who? And they purposely don't tell us what's going on in the world. Definitely not Black people. And also want to just take a moment to welcome in Crazy Berrytown in the room, Jenny Firth to the room, Diesel 7041. This is one of the great things I love about this platform, John, is that people can interact with us. I wish there was a way for you to be able to see what I'm seeing, but that's why I'm taking a minute every once in a while and just reading it out to you. The only Diesel 7041 says, that only works when we don't give the appearance of providing that, yet we make laws that disprove it. Welcome to America, the country of contradictions.
I
And
can't
that really
disagree
is
with
what we
that at
are. I
all.
am not sure what the founders intended, but I do know what God did not intend this. And I feel like it's easy to know.
Yeah, it's easy to let's put it this way. We were all brought up differently. We all have our different beliefs, and we're only as strong as our own beliefs are. I think. No, we have no idea what the founding fathers intended. Um, we can guess, and in our own faith, we can say God did not intend for this to happen, or God did not intend for things to be like this. But again, we're trying to guess what God would have thought about certain things, and we can make up our own minds on that. Many things we know God did not intend. I don't believe God intended for anyone to be in pain. I was brought up in a way that God is all loving, and God is our Father, and that kind of put it on my mental level where God is a father. Okay, as a father, I want to protect my children, but sometimes bad things are going to happen that I cannot control. So that's sort of the way I've thought of it. And again, I'm not saying I'm right. That's just the way that my brain works. I have to keep things, fundamental in order for me to really kind of hang on to them. Hey, listen, I'm not the brightest guy in the world. I've got some gifts that I've been given by God. I try to use them. I try to be a good human. I try to be a good person in society. But I do not have all the answers. Unlike a lot of these people that, these talking heads you see on television. They have all the answers to everything. Well, that's a crock. I mean, you don't.
Absolutely.
maybe in their lives, okay. And that's all I'm saying is that
No.
in my life,
But we
there
do
are.
know. I feel like what we do know. I agree with spiritual thought leader who put in the chat that what we do know about the Constitution and the people that crafted it is that they were racist and privileged, and that must be addressed immediately. We cannot drag our feet on that. And there are many things that we don't know, but I do agree with that. Those are some things that we do know. And people were in an uproar over Roe v. Wade, but then Biden turned around and signed a bill making the oral contraception more available. As you would say, while we slumbered, slept, and slobbered. Go figure.
Yeah, I and here's the thing. Yes, people were in an uproar over Roe v. Wade. Um, I'm And again, knowing what the decision means is very important. Yes, it means the federal government is not going to protect a woman's legal right to abort a child. And so, yeah, and you said it best. I think the federal government, the Supreme Court, basically went, "Not our problem." And when in reality, and I don't know how to do this, but in reality, the government has no place in this issue. The government needs to stay the heck out of it on both sides of the coin. The federal government needs to stay out of it. The state government needs to stay out of it. This is a woman's and her partner's decision. And
Right.
again, I am pro-life, guilty as charged. I am pro-life. However, I will defend a woman's right to what happens with her own body.
But also pro-choice.
Yes, I am pro-choice. I personally do not believe in abortion. Okay. But again, I will defend a woman's right to make a decision regarding her own body, just like I don't want somebody to tell me that I have to have a vasectomy. I mean, if I want to, and it's a decision that, the wife and I make together. And so I'm adamant about that. I think it's important that the government stay out of the decision of what we do with our bodies. I don't think that's right. You got to draw the line somewhere. Listen, being an American is a very hard job. And the reason I say that is because there are things that people say that make my blood boil. But by the same token, they have the right to say them. And that particular, that liberty and that freedom, I
Yes.
think, are so critical. I just, and then we can get into the whole Second Amendment thing, which, and then everybody talks about the separation of church and state.
All right. I have to jump in because
Okay, please.
my pastor is totally just amazing, and has so many good things that she's saying here. I just want to share them with you, John, real quick. So she's one of the things that she said is, I know that God is not a respecter of persons. If we believe that, we should feel pressured to make a change. And just, my thought after that is, if we are a Christian country, if God is the foundation of this country, like she says, God is no respecter of persons. So if we believe that, then we must make a change, and there really is no excuse not to make a change. CJDA 2020 says yes. I was just about to mention that about God, who is no respecter of person. And then spiritual thought leader says MLK's thesis of why we can't wait. Yes, but Too many white Christians are comfortable dragging their feet to insist on liberty and justice for all. And then Jenny Firth says, I agree with this, and I am proud to say that our new pastor is leading us in a new forward space. But one of the things we've had so many kind of different conversations that we've had today, John. So I want to just kind of see if we can touch on each topic and give you and me the opportunity to finish.
Okay, I'm a little confused by what your pastor said. God is not a respecter of persons.
I'm listening to you, John. I don't know if you're saying anything yet.
Okay, my question is what your pastor said.
Absolutely. God is not a respecter of persons.
Okay, I think we need to flesh that out a little bit more. I'm not 100% sure where that's going.
Okay, well, we'll give spiritual thought leader an opportunity to kind of express where she's going. In my opinion, what we're, because the conversation has been about the Constitution, Christianity, right and wrong, and those things, and the creation of the Constitution, right? It all comes about that, how it was established, who established it in the name of Christianity, who that document was created for. But if we are a Christian country and we are rooted in God, and God is does not no differentiation between people, but when this country was established, there was a differentiator between people. So there's a contradiction there. In my mind, that's the point of it.
Okay. Now that you have said that, that makes a little bit more sense. And I think you're right in that God does not differentiate between people based on anything. We are all God's children. I agree. And I think that God does respect each of us individually, but yet not differently. God loves us all, regardless of what we are. But I think with God being God, God knows all of us and knows what's in our hearts. And if we open our hearts to God, then that, in theory, should keep us from doing things that God would not approve of. This is something that honestly I haven't given deep thought to for a very long time, but I think it's important that that I make sure that I'm fully grasping what
That's
your
why
pastor is saying.
We're here to challenge. We're here to challenge you and change your perspective. Because if we hang on to the idea that this country was created by people who had everyone's best interest in heart, and they say that it's created on the basis of God, who loves us all no matter who we are, then that document needs to change. And that's one of the things that spiritual thought leaders said. When we talk of the Constitution, it is for white privilege. It must be changed. And really, that's just one sentence that gives me goosebumps. It is built on white privilege, and that document needs to change.
Yeah, and I would agree. The document does need to change. The Constitution does need to be updated. It does need to be clarified, and it does need to reflect the nation as we are now, as we are now, and will, hopefully, be in the future. I mean, it's the document itself has the potential to shape a great amount of American life and society over the next 500 years. We have to remember this is just the American Constitution, the American ideal, if you will, is still a great experiment in self government. And I think we have shown that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And to form a more perfect union, I like that idea, provided it's inclusive enough. It's going to have to be a pretty big friggin' umbrella to get all of us underneath it. But no, I think, in order to form a more perfect union is something that we should always strive for. And I
Listen,
think,
this is my opinion about that. Again, I'm interrupting, I know, and I apologize. I just don't know when you're done when you're done talking.
I don't know
But
when
to
I'm done
me,
either.
this country, and this is like the biggest analogy that I have in my head. Like, this country wants this to be a melting pot, right? So you get all of these different kind of people, ethnicities, and you put it all in this big pot, and no matter how you went in, you melt into this glob of stuff that everyone is the same. But that sameness in this country means that you must conform to our whiteness. You know what I mean? So that melting
Yes.
pot is whiteness. And no matter how you come into that pot, Black, Asian, Indian, Hispanic, Dominican, Puerto Rican, Filipino, whatever, when you get into that pot, it's whiteness. That's what that melting pot is. But I like to think of it. And again, I am totally always trying to change my perspective of how things should be. And with that analogy, we need to be a chef salad where everything is still individual, but it still tastes good and works good together. The tomatoes, the lettuce, you can add some spinach in there, mushrooms. There's so much that can be added to a salad, but it's still going to work together and it's going to taste good. And using that analogy is going to be good for you too.
I got a better analogy. A charcuterie board.
Hold on. A charcuterie board. It took a minute for me to get that charcuterie board thing. But
Yeah.
you still eat those things individually, John. That's my problem. The charcuterie board looks pretty, but I eat an olive, and I suppose it all tastes good together.
Okay.
I like that
All
analogy
right.
too.
Okay. I think I understand now. But see, you eat a charcuterie board way different than I do. Because I'm grabbing a handful of stuff, and it's all going in the hole under my nose at the same time. So no, I understand the chef salad idea. That's good, and I like that. And I think you're right. And by the way, I must give you kudos for great use of the word glob in what you said earlier. That was that's a 5-star. That was good. But we are a glob, you know. It's right now we are a glob, and I think you're right. I think that I do think you're right. I think the melting pot does go into a great pot of whiteness. There's still a lot of that, and no, I
John,
think
John, I can't prescribe to being a glob. I can't say that I'm the same person that just shot up Uvalde. I can't say that I'm the same person that killed Emmett Till. I can't subscribe to the fact that I'm the same person that just shot up Highland Park. I can't even subscribe to the fact that I'm the same person as Robert E. Lee or our founding fathers, because our views are so different. So it's hard for me to say I'm going to jump into that pot of melting glob and say that I'm going to prescribe to what that glob is made of.
No, I would agree with that, and you know, the term melting pot. Yes, we need something different, but I like the fact that we are all on this rock together. There are bad things that happen. Um, we're finding more and more out about the young man in Highland Park, which, by the way, Highland Park is a beautiful area. I've been there many times. I grew up not far from Chicagoland, in Indiana. And no, Highland Park is a very, very pretty area. But there are bad things that happen. The shooting in Akron was horrific, and we can go back and analyze that. And there are some real serious problems there. The city of Akron itself. This is the third or fourth shooting of this sort in Akron since December. They've got some problems in that city. There's no two ways about it. They've got some big problems in Chicago as well. And you know, it's just what is happening is horrible.
Yeah.
I do think that in 2022 we hear about these things far more than we used to.
All right, John. I'm sorry. I try to catch you in your when your lips stop moving.
Good luck.
I've had you on for an hour and a half now, and I have 5 questions that I always like to end my show with, that I ask my special guests. And you know, they evolve at times, but very interesting 5 questions to end this day. And then let me just say to everyone who's in the chat, who's not in the chat, thank you so much for joining us. Spiritual Thought Leader, Jenny Firth, Crazy Berrytown, CJ. Now I'm trying to get up here, so I make sure I get everybody. I call CJDA 2020. That's actually family. Bull One Fan, also family. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your Saturday with us. I always know it's not easy to take a couple of hours out of your beautiful Saturdays to join me. So I really, really appreciate you so much. All right, John. First question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
First question is, do you believe that America has reached its full potential?
No.
Easy answer. No.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Awesome. Second question. What would you be doing? What would you be doing if you weren't doing what you're doing now? If you weren't a marketing specialist or a lover of baseball, what would you be doing?
I would be a full-time voiceover artist. I've wanted to get into that business for a long time. I spent many years in radio. My passion and my gift from God is my voice. I think I would be a full-time voiceover artist, or if money were no object, I would be running a daycare or a pre-K.
I do love your voice. And you're not doing voiceover work now. I know we've talked about that, and I'm definitely I have you in my back pocket, but you're not doing any of that work right now?
I do some. I don't do a lot. What I'm really kind of hoping is that once Amy and I are empty nesters, I can go back and really pursue that on a full-time basis and retire from my normal 9 to 5 thing. But no, I do some. I don't do a lot. As I said, I do some public address announcing here in town. Fortunately, technology is something that will allow me to do some more voice work over time. It's pretty competitive. I've got to get an agent, and that's proven to be a bit of a challenge too. So when I have a little bit more time to work on it, I'd love to do it full time.
Yes, yes, yes. I'll be your agent.
Okay, you're
I'll be
hired.
your agent because you definitely have that voice, John. All right.
Thank you.
So, name one thing that you would do if money was not of any concern. Money is no object. What's the one thing you would do?
I really want to start an endowment for um, disadvantaged potential college students, where they could go to any college anywhere, and I would pay for not just 4 years, but if they wanted to go on to postgraduate work, I want to be able to every year um, pick one student and pay for all their college.
That's awesome. I love when I ask that question, and the first answer that comes to people's mind is
Yes.
giving back. I appreciate that about you. All right. So, number 4, we're almost done. What are you most grateful for right now?
My wife, she'd be
Uh,
a number one. My kids close behind. I have been blessed with a loving family my entire life, but my wife is my rock. She really is. Um, she is my best friend, and we built a wonderful life together. And so I thank God every day for that, for my wife.
That's awesome. I love love. Love is a beautiful thing. My parents were married for 44 years before my mom passed away. So, I have, the shining beacon of relationships with my parents because it did not start out easy. My mom was 16, my dad was 19 when they married, and their path was not easy. It was bumpy, it zigzagged a lot, but they made it 44 wonderful years. And so I love the fact that your wife is top of your list. All right, last question for you, John.
Okay.
Last question. This is the hardest one. If today were the last day of your life, how would you live it?
Wow. Um, I, you know, I I like to think that I live every day like it's my last. I There's no place I would rather be than anywhere with my wife and family. So I don't. Um, if I could be with my wife and family at a Major League Baseball game as my last day, what else is there?
I love it. And yeah, and you have those days a lot with your wife at a baseball game.
Yeah, well, not as many as I would like. She's a when she and I first got married, she was my wife. Now I'm her husband. And you grow, and so she's a busy lady. She's got her fingers in lots of pies, and I'm looking forward to the day where we can just grow old together. I mean, we'll be married 20 years next December. And I'm hoping for 20 more. God willing, if I take care of myself, we'll get 20 more.
John, I have thoroughly enjoyed our time together. I feel like we could have talked for another 2 hours easily. So we'll have to have another conversation one day real soon.
I look forward to it, Twana. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks to everybody for listening and for watching.
All right, John. So what I'm going to do is just let you go so you can go enjoy your day. Everyone who's watching, we're just going to talk a little bit about what's coming up. So I'm going to let you go. So give me a second, John. I'm going to get you out of here. All right. So real quick, you guys, I won't take much more of your time. Like I always say, I always appreciate the fact that you're here and you're spending this time with me on a Saturday afternoon when you can be doing so many other things. But I just want to let you know. Let's see why all of coming next. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. So today we had our wonderful friend John Flint, but next week we will not be having a show. I am going to travel to Cleveland for the Ohio meetup. I really, was on the fence of whether I was going to go or not because things have just been a little bit hectic for me the last few weeks, but the trip's paid for, so I'm going to go and enjoy it. A friend of mine told me yesterday that we cannot cancel the positive things in our life because of the negative things. And so that really spoke to my spirit. So I'm not canceling this trip because of the negative things that have happened. I'm going. So we're not going to have a show next week. But the week after that, and you guys had your opportunity to hear spiritual thought leader and get a little bit of what she has to say just in this chat. But we're going to get deeper into this conversation of In God We Trust, how this country was established. So we're going to talk about the history of religion, how religion shaped our Black communities. What's the function of our Black churches anymore? And how is all of that being affected still by this wave of Christianity that we had in this country? So I am so looking forward to that. I know Spiritual Thought Leader has a heck of a week coming up ahead next week. So I just want to say good luck. Be safe. I wish that I could help, but I have a feeling you have plenty of people to help you on this journey. But I do appreciate the fact that Spiritual Thought Leader is going to be with us next week. So hopefully you will be able to join us because it's going to be an awesome conversation. And then the week after that, I have another really good guest coming, Larry Fitzgerald Sr. If you are familiar with football at all, he is the father of Larry Fitzgerald Jr., who is a wide receiver extraordinaire for the Arizona Cardinals. But we're going to be talking about the change in the NCAA rules, which allows college athletes to make money off of their likeness, their names, and their identities, which is something new. It just happened. So we're going to talk about how that's been affecting the collegiate landscape and dig into how that seems to be also kind of a target get to our Black athletes who really are the ones who are going to be making the money off of this, right? So again, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to give you all some time back on this Saturday. Thank you everyone for joining CJDA 2020, Spiritual Thought Leader, Resh in the Flesh, my wonderful mod who's hoping that this is her last week. She has to do this. I just want to keep telling you, beautiful princess of mine, I am working on making this your last day here with us. Thank you so much, Jenny Firth. I appreciate you joining us today. And I appreciate how you were involved and engaged with the conversation. I appreciate that. And yes, the links that were in the chat today, I left because they were from last week when we were talking about the Tulsa race massacre and how that affected Black communities and redlining and how all of that worked together. So I did a lot of research for that conversation, of course. So I hope that you will go back and watch the documentaries and read the different media posts that I had for there. Thank you so much, Bull One fan. I know you haven't been able to chat, but I know you're listening. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Diesel 7041. Thank you all again for coming. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and we'll see you next in 2 weeks. Bye-bye. Oh, wait a minute. I always keep forgetting. Hold on. We got to go raid somebody. We have to raid. I'm getting better at this. I actually have in front of me raid, so that we can actually go in and bless someone else's channel. So let's see who is live right now. Copy that raid message. And, if you are not normally on Twitch, I hope that this gives you an opportunity to see what other DJs are doing, other streamers and podcasters are doing within this space. I found this wonderful community a little while ago. It's actually just been this year, and they have wrapped their loving arms around me and embraced me in so many ways. They've entertained me. They've made me cry. They've made me laugh. There are so many wonderful people on Twitch that you should follow, including Spiritual Thought Leader and Crazy Berry Town. All right, so we're going to go to, let's go to DJ Jin. I haven't rated her yet, so hopefully she'll allow us to join us. DJ Jin, I'm going to pick her. All right, and we're going to start the raid now. So then now we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Talk to you later. Bye. Thank you. Thank you.